Hello class, welcome to Module 6. This week we are going to talk about Shazam, the first Captain Marvel. So one thing to get clear about Shazam is that his real name is Captain Marvel, but it gets kind of confusing when you refer to him as Captain Marvel because there's also the Marvel Comics version of Captain Marvel. And there's also a character named Marvel, all kinds of stuff. And there's a few different Captain Marvels out there. So I'm going to be calling him both Shazam and Captain Marvel in order to try to keep away from that confusion. But he was the first Captain Marvel, so that's an important thing to know. So he was created by Charles Beck and Bill Parker for Fawcett Comics, which was another comics outside of the would-be DC and Marvel comics. And he debuted in Whiz Comics #2, and there was no Whiz Comics #1, I don't know why, in 1940. So this version of Captain Marvel became the biggest selling comic character of the 1940s. He was better drawn, his adventures were more exciting, and he had an entire family, not just one silly sidekick. Unfortunately, this success led to National Comics, which was DC's original parent company. So Detective Comics was an imprint of National Comics. It led to them suing in 1953 over copyright infringement. So allegedly Captain Marvel was too similar to Superman because he also wore a cape and leaped buildings occasionally, but he wore his underpants on the inside, which is a huge difference there. And that's all the difference I need. DC won their lawsuit, which ended the Captain Marvel comics and led to Fawcett licensing the character to DC in 1972. So that was a very long time from the lawsuit to where DC Comics actually got the character. But because Marvel Comics had begun using the Captain Marvel moniker for its own character in the intervening years, DC would be forced to refer to their new character as Shazam instead. So it's what I call karmic justice. So if you're wondering why it's called Shazam now, even though that was like the catchphrase of it, that's why. Because of Marvel Comics' version of Captain Marvel. When he wasn't solving crimes and using his powers, Captain Marvel didn't wear glasses and pretend he was a normal person. His persona only became active once young Billy Batson said the magic word, Shazam, and transformed into a big muscular man with perfectly slicked back hair, which was also black. It was slicked back black hair. Billy wasn't a space alien or a traumatized billionaire, just a normal Depression-era street orphan granted his powers by a wizard in a dark tunnel. Because if you're a street kid, obviously you're going to trust any wizard you run into in a dark tunnel. That's kind of creepy. And from what did his powers derive? The gods, of course. Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. And we are mixing Greek, Roman, and Christian characters here, but this is fantasy, damn it. And it just proves my point that gods and demigods were the inspiration for superheroes. So as Captain Marvel's popularity grew, he was joined by his twin sister, Mary Marvel, who was Mary Batson, and Captain Marvel Jr., who was Freddie Freeman, who derived their abilities from the same ancient well of power, so they could take another part of the Shazam power, and they became the Marvel family. There were other members of the Marvel family as well. Last but not least was Hoppy the Marvel Bunny, and he was the only member of the Marvel team not murdered by the Detective Comics lawsuit. So he continued in Funny Animals for a while after Captain Marvel got the axe. But wait, there's more. So I also want to talk about some of the forgotten heroes of the Golden Age. We talked about some of the female heroes earlier when we talked about Wonder Woman, but here are some of the other characters that also, they were created and then killed off. Some of them never really caught on during the first age of comics. And here are some of the stranger characters that you probably never heard of. First one is the Fighting Hobo. His only appearance was in USA Comics #5 in a story called The Dog Nappers. And his real name is Butch Brogan, and he is literally a fighting hobo. Then you have the Wizard. As a child, Bobby Frank was injected with the blood of a mongoose to save him from a deadly fever, giving him super speed. And I'm not sure about the science of that and how that works. He was also a member of the Marvel's first superhero team-up, which is the All-Winners Squad, which also included Captain America, the Human Torch, the Submariner, Miss America, and also sidekicks Bucky and Toro. We'll talk about them in a minute. He later married Miss America, so he got lucky in that respect. Then we have the Angel, who was first appearing in Marvel Comics #1 as a costumed vigilante with an uncertain origin story and a very Superman-esque uniform. And DC probably didn't sue because the character was never popular. In recent years, he's been seen alongside the Hulk, but has mostly been kept mothballed because of the better-known X-Man, also named Angel. Blue Bolt. This is the first character created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, who also created Captain America. They created Blue Bolt first. He first appeared in 1940 in Novelty Press's Blue Bolt. He had his own series throughout the 1940s, but he flamed out in 1949 about the same time as a lot of other superheroes. Fred Parrish, his actual name, started out as a football star but was struck by lightning twice, involved in a plane crash, and then saved with radiation by a mad scientist. His slightly nebulous superpowers allowed him to take on everyone from underground mole people to Adolf Hitler. Then we have the Shield, who is possibly the first patriotically uniformed superhero, and with an origin story very similar to Captain America's. The Shield first appeared in MLJ, which was later Archie Comics, Shield Wizard Comics in 1940. So he beat Captain America by a year. He received a sidekick soon after, Dusty, the boy detective, and his costume was later appropriated for Archie Andrews' football uniform when his popularity was over and done with because the war was over. He disappeared in 1945 and has made sporadic appearances since. But the uniform keeps appearing more often on Archie. The Wizard, originally more of a conventional magician, Blaine Whitney developed a super brain and then put on blue and red tights, looking like Superman with a mustache and a mask. He teamed up with the Shield and had a sidekick named Roy, the Superboy, who also teamed up with Dusty, the boy detective, and they had their own series called Boy Buddies. He reappeared in the 1960s as a bearded villain, and in the 1980s as a hero again who had no memory of ever being a villain. And then we have the original Human Torch, which is one of Marvel's first and most popular early characters. He's often confused with the Johnny Storm version from the Fantastic Four, which is the more well-known one. He first appeared in Marvel Comics #1 in 1939 and got his own series in 1940. He was an android with a flamey malfunction, which he later learned to control. He took on a human alter ego briefly named Jim Hammond, and he was given a sidekick named Sun Girl. His appearances petered out around the same time as Captain America's original demise, which is when a lot of superheroes met their end at the end of the Golden Age. And he was brought back occasionally, but only to be killed again. And then sources there, 6 largely forgotten heroes from Marvel's Golden Age. I got some of my info from there. And then also Don Markstein's Tunipedia is very useful for this stuff as well. So the film for this week is Shazam from 2019. And it was directed by David Sandberg, who also directed the movie Lights Out. Written by Henry Gayden with a story by Darren Lemke, who is a pitch expert, and most of whose films have been box office disasters. But apparently that was not the case with this film. So beware of Darren Lemke here. Another superhero film that took 10 years to get made. A lot of them do. As part of the DC Extended Universe, it also contains a cameo by Superman, though you can't see his face because Henry Cavill wasn't really invited to participate. That tends to be one of the biggest failing, in my opinion, of the DC Extended Universe, is the fact that they just are not nice to Superman. And they need to be nice to Superman because he's Superman, damn it. Okay, I'm over it. Comic origin. So the movie takes pieces from much of Captain Marvel / Shazam's convoluted comic history, which we've already talked a little bit. And I have an article that breaks down a fair number of them, including one by Grant Morrison, which is rare because most of his comic runs are way too convoluted for cinematic adaptation. Although, if they were adapted, they'd be awesome. Because they're so convoluted. The overall feel and tone of the movie borrows a great deal from the Jeff Johns Justice League series from 2011 to 2016, mentioned in the article I provided, which resets Captain Marvel's origin story to the present day and has Billy behaving like a naughty boy, like the naughty boy that he is. You can read it free here, so I have a link to that, but be forewarned, there's a whole bunch of pop-ups, and it's probably illegal to do it anyway, so you can also go to Comixology and get that, but it's going to cost you a little bit of money. It's up to you. You can not even read it, but it's there. Okay. And then Dr. Thaddeus Sivana has been around since Wiz Comics #2. and is Captain Marvel's oldest adversary, but not his most famous. That's Black Adam, who gets that honor. And the movie version is more like the Jerry Ordway, The Power of Shazam series from 1994 to 1999, in which Sivana is a tycoon in addition to being a mad scientist. So we definitely get, in the movie, we get the tycoon element of that. So the synopsis of it: Billy Batson, placed in his latest foster home, struggles to assimilate with his new parents, siblings, and school. And after defending his foster brother Freddy from bullies, Billy ends up in a cave where he's granted the power of Shazam by an exhausted wizard, which is totally not creepy at all. Meanwhile, the evil Thaddeus Sivana continues his attempts to acquire power by any means possible. So he was turned down by the wizard as a child, because I think he was deemed unworthy or just plain evil. And essentially, he tries to destroy the world. And Billy, with Freddy's help, struggles to learn how to use his new powers for the good of mankind. So a sequel called Shazam! Fury of the Gods is planned for 2022, which is a good thing. Enjoy.